Hi there, and welcome back to another project update for my large-scale Killa Kan. In this video I'll be building the ankle joints. As with the shoulders, rather than trying to create the ball and socket that the original model has, I'll just be building a joint that can rotate around one axis and be locked in place. I started with the housing for the pivot, which also makes up the central part of the foot. With the pieces assembled, you can see where a short axle will go through the holes. I then moved on to the stub that would encase a small collet. This will be used to lock the joint in place. I used exactly the same design as I did for the shoulder joints. Note how the collet has been scratched to give the superglue better purchase. Here you can now see I've drilled the hole to allow access to the collet's grub screw. The short length of axle is shown here. The ends are filed flat to stop it rotating when it is glued. Here I'm showing how the axle fits in place to act as the pivot point. There is some space left either side of the stub for some washers. This will stop any rubbing. Here I'm testing the fit of the top disc, although this couldn't be glued until the axle was fixed in place later in the build. Access to the grub screw will be through the bottom of the foot. To cover the pivot I used some 30mm ABS hemispherical domes, using masking tape to mark the section to be cut out. The domes fit like so. I decided to add a little extra detail to the end of the stub, as it could be seen through the slot in the dome. I also took the opportunity to paint any internal surfaces that could be visible. You can see I have glued some washers to act as spacers. In hindsight these would have been better left loose, as they do bind a little. This close-up shows how the flattened ends of the axle are locked in place with two-part epoxy poured into the tube. With the stub and axle fixed in place, the top disc can now be glued and the vertical support sanded flush, allowing me to wrap 1mm sheet around to form the cylinder. An additional ring was also glued on top. The 20mm tube on the right is the main leg shaft. To attach this to the stub I cut out some discs the same size as the internal diameter of the tube. With holes cut into the discs they were glued onto the stub, thus allowing a square peg to fit perfectly inside a round hole. I swapped the supplied grub screws with bolts of the same thread size, as they were easier to work with and more robust. Loosening the bolt unlocks the ankle, allowing the angle of the leg to be changed before retightening. And finally, here are both completed ankle joints, which are now ready to have the feet built around them. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this update. Until next time, thanks for watching.